Welcome back to the ACE-CPT exam prep series. This is lesson 4. We're in the domain of client onboarding and assessments, and today we're stepping back from checklists and forms to look at something a little more theoretical, the psychology behind why people actually change their behavior. We'll cover the health belief model, decisional balance, relapse, and operant conditioning. Think of this lesson as the why behind a lot of what you'll do at intake. It's the foundation that makes the practical stuff in later lessons make sense. Let's look at what you'll be able to do by the end of this lesson. There are 4 objectives. First, you'll be able to explain the health belief model, what it is and what it predicts. Second, you'll describe the transtheoretical model's deeper mechanics, beyond just the 5 stages you may already know. Third, you'll be able to reframe relapse as a normal, expected part of behavior change, not a sign of failure. And fourth, you'll apply reinforcement, shaping, and stimulus control as real tools you can use with clients. Keep these 4 in mind as we go. They build on each other. Before we dive into details, let's zoom out and see the whole map. This lesson is really the theory behind Lesson 6, so think of it as laying groundwork. There are 3 pieces. First, the health belief model. This covers susceptibility, severity, benefits and barriers, and cues to action. It explains why someone starts to consider changing in the first place. Second, the deeper mechanics of the transtheoretical model. The processes of change, decisional balance, and relapse as a normal cycle rather than a dead end. And third, operant conditioning. Reinforcement, shaping, and stimulus control, which are the practical tools a trainer actually uses once a client starts acting. Keep this 3-part structure in your head. We're going to walk through each piece one at a time. Let's start with the health belief model. This model tries to explain why a person decides to take action on their health, and it breaks that decision down into 4 components. The first is perceived susceptibility, how much risk a person believes they personally face. Someone who doesn't think a health problem could happen to them has little reason to change anything. The second is perceived severity, how serious they believe the consequences of inaction would actually be. Even if someone accepts they're at risk, if they don't think the consequences are that bad, motivation stays low. The third is perceived benefits and barriers, essentially a mental cost-benefit analysis. Does the upside of changing outweigh the effort, time, or discomfort it takes to get there? And the fourth is cues to action, an external trigger, like a doctor's warning or a health scare, that pushes someone from thinking about change into actually doing something about it. Together, these 4 factors predict whether someone is ready to act. You've probably already learned the 5 stages of the transtheoretical model: pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. This slide goes a layer deeper into the mechanics underneath those stages. Let's walk through the table. First, processes of change. These are the actual strategies a person uses to move forward from one stage to the next, ranging from experiential processes, like raising awareness, to more behavioral processes, like substituting healthier habits for unhealthy ones. Second, decisional balance. This is simply weighing the perceived pros and cons of changing. Early on, the cons often outweigh the pros. As someone progresses through the stages, that balance tips the other way. And third, relapse. And this is an important one for the exam. Relapse isn't treated as a failure in this model. It's built in as a normal, expected part of the cycle, often just a temporary return to an earlier stage. Understanding these 3 mechanics is what separates a surface-level knowledge of the stages from a real working understanding of the model. Now let's shift from theory about mindset to theory about behavior itself, operant conditioning. There are 3 tools here, and they're genuinely practical. Reinforcement means following a behavior with something that makes it more likely to happen again. Praise after a completed workout, for example, makes that client more likely to show up next time. Shaping means reinforcing small, successive steps toward a bigger goal, rather than waiting for the whole goal to be achieved before acknowledging progress. You reward the client for the walk around the block before you ever expect them to run a 5K. And stimulus control means shaping the environment itself to make the desired behavior easier, laying out workout clothes the night before or keeping junk food out of the house. One more thing worth noting here. This lesson is really the why behind the model. Lesson 6 is the how, where you'll apply the 5 stages directly at intake with real clients. So, how do all these frameworks actually fit together for one real client? Here's how it plays out in practice. The health belief model explains why someone starts considering change in the first place, their sense of risk, the seriousness of the consequences, and whether a trigger pushed them to act. Decisional balance explains what keeps them stuck once they're thinking about it, that ongoing weighing of pros and cons that can stall someone in contemplation for a long time. And shaping and stimulus control are the trainer's tools once the client actually starts acting, reinforcing small wins and adjusting the environment to make the new behavior stick. These frameworks aren't competing theories. They layer on top of each other across the same client's journey. Let's test what you've learned with a practice question. According to the health belief model, what describes how serious a person believes the consequences of inaction would be? Your options are perceived susceptibility, perceived severity, cues to action, or decisional balance. Take a moment to think it through. The correct answer is perceived severity. Here's why. Perceived severity is specifically how serious a person believes the consequences of not changing would actually be. Perceived susceptibility is about personal risk, not severity of outcome. And cues to action and decisional balance are separate concepts entirely. So severity is the one that matches this definition. Here's your second practice question. How should relapse be understood within the transtheoretical model? Your options are as a permanent failure, as a normal, expected part of the change process, as proof the program was flawed, or as something only pre-contemplation clients face. Take a moment to think it through. The correct answer is that relapse is a normal, expected part of the change process. Here's why. Relapse is built into the model as a normal part of the cycle, often just a temporary return to an earlier stage rather than a total reset. It's not a permanent failure. It's not proof of a flawed program, and it certainly isn't limited to any one stage. Any client, at any point, can experience it. Let's recap what we covered in this lesson. The health belief model predicts behavior change based on susceptibility, severity, benefits and barriers, and cues to action. The transtheoretical model also includes processes of change, decisional balance, and relapse, mechanics that go beyond just the 5 stages. Relapse is a normal, expected part of behavior change, not a failure. Remember that one. It comes up often. Reinforcement, shaping, and stimulus control are operant conditioning tools a trainer can use deliberately with real clients. And finally, these frameworks layer together for a single client rather than competing with one another. That's the core of the psychology behind behavior change. Keep it in mind as we move forward. That's a wrap on Lesson 4. In Lesson 5, we're introducing the ACE Integrated Fitness Training Model. You'll meet the 2 independent components you'll spend the rest of this course learning to program around. See you in the next lesson.